feasible? You can't do 19, get them back and collect the, you can't get all the surveys made.
I think what you can't do is do a mail, like to mail a survey that
Postcard one like
the
you and I
8 pages of the survey, whatever it's going to be, in the mail with a postage stamp return envelope for people to have. However, is 2 weeks enough time? And that doesn't seem like enough time.
2 weeks and 10 days for the mail.
Like, so there's, because you have to get, if you do a mailed survey, you have preparing the mail, getting it out in the mail, the period of time for the public to answer, and then getting them the surveys back in the mail. So if it's online, we cut off time on either end.
Yeah. Okay, but still not on the postcard piece is still, I'm assuming I'm assuming some of the delay is getting back a mail. Now you're not talking both ways, right? Or taking time for them to fill it. You give them the opportunity, they get a postcard off we take both lists, mail, you don't agree, sure?
No, I'm sorry. That wasn't my nodding, was something else, sorry. No, they talked about getting the postcard out.
A postcard out.
Yeah, with the
QR code, they can do it on their phone,
Yeah.
or to hand.
It's not going to work. There's way too many people that still have dumb phones that
That's
can't
fine.
figure out smartphones.
But the postcard says if they want to fill a survey, there's hard copies to stop by the township.
I think you just mail it out. That's my opinion. Too many older folks in the
Yeah.
neighborhood,
Yeah,
and residents in the
absolutely.
township that are not computer savvy. And I think it's better, you mail out tax bills, you can mail out a postage, get a survey. That's simple.
Okay, but then it delays.
Delays it, delays. You gotta get it right. Everybody's should have an opinion.
That's fine. If that's
The only thing that was brought up in the meeting was that the previous survey was from 2016, and that was the thought. If you read the survey in Appendix A, it's from 2016. It's already 7 years old, going on 8 years now. So what you were saying, that's why we said use the same questions, because then we can actually know, have we improved or have we failed? And if we failed, how do we fix that failure? You know what I mean? Like if our roads are worse now than they were then, but I think they're better, you know, those were all questions that were a part of it in this Appendix A right here. And that's why we said to use those identical questions, because then you can compare apples to apples, and I said that Monday night.
No, it's not in the motion.
Well, we had a lot of discussion.
Oh, you had a lot of discussion, but the motion itself just said within the 63 days. I'll double check, you know, I mean, I still have to listen to the tape, but if memory serves me right, it's not.
Yeah, well, the hope was to be able to accomplish it in 63 days. The contention.
but that's not. So then you correct me if I'm wrong, but I assume that the 63 days is the minimum, right? It doesn't mean that if we could.
The minimum, it's technically a 63-day period. It's for the neighboring jurisdictions and the registered entities of your community. So it's, you guys are going above and beyond by having it out on your website already and out for this amount of public review. So, because the 63-day period is specifically for, it's in the Enabling Act, it's for the review of the master plan by your neighboring communities and your registered entity like MDOT. So if they don't respond in 63 days, those people, then you just take it that they have nothing to say. You don't have to wait for their response. But if you, I mean,
is it fair to say that that's the minimum though? So let's say, you know where I'm going with this, to say that if the surveys, and maybe I should even back up to say, based on the posting on Monday, it would, the public hearing then is what day? March
14th.
Oh, it's on right here.
March
Wow.
14th. So, if the surveys aren't back, the way I understand it, then it's just, it doesn't automatically go into effect, right? Or does it?
the master plan?
Yeah.
No.
No.
The 14th is it's a public hearing
Okay.
to hear comments on the master plan.
Okay.
If you, at that that public hearing, get significant feedback from the public that you feel needs to be addressed before the master plan is adopted.
Mhm.
You've held your public hearing, you go into discussion, and you discuss what you're gonna do.
March
But
14th.
you're not by any means required to adopt the master plan after the public hearing.
Okay, so it's not, my point is, it's not automatic at
No.
any point. There's additional votes that.
You adopt the master plan via resolution, which is a roll call vote, so,
And it's the planning commission.
yep, planning commission.
And we're able, that if the surveys, if we do decide here tonight that we're going to mail surveys, if those come in after, we're able to push, let's say it was on the meeting then for April to be adopted, we can push it till May to adopt it based on surveys that come in, or giving additional time for surveys to be considered.
Giving additional time for public comment.
Just table it until you got your information.
Well, but I think we need,
You can push
We're
it
at a
back.
timeline right now.
So when you say the surrounding governmental bodies, so we're supposed to mail them copies,
No.
or they just, if they respond, they respond, if they don't, they don't?
We email them copies.
You mail them copies, okay.
But as Jen said, by having that public hearing, that's the public's opportunity to come in and, voice their opinion.
I get that. I understand, but there was also a directive to do a survey. Do you have costs or anything involved of what that?
This is, that would be a discussion that we'd have to have with Sam. Because it's just additional work.
Maybe the board of trustees
Well,
would
I'm
have a meeting
definitely-
on it.
Yeah.
Because that would be an actual decision that the board of trustees would have to, but since it is a master plan, which deals with the future construction of our township, can that not partially come out of our building budget?
But to me, that expense would then have to be approved by
Trustees,
the trustees.
all of them.
So we could, all of it, or, majority, whether they wanted to spend
Yeah.
that money. General, do we have to, going back to Don's comment, in order to, do we have to make the decision then to send a survey? Or any resolution, any
Does the
motion
planning
here?
commission?
Yes, for a survey.
Send it back to.
Or do we send it back?
So when
For
the
the
issue
money-wise.
seems to be the money, right? So we have never sent our contracts to the planning commission as vice group for approval. Our contracts always go to the township board. So it sounds like it sounds like we're moving forward with the survey. So then I would, however, so just as our contract process has always worked with the township, we would follow that through with the board.
Prior to, if we voted to do a survey, would that seek prior approval from the elected board before you started that survey process?
I wouldn't start the survey process until I had approval from the board.
Okay. So
Correct.
that's kind of the checks and balances.
You're looking for you're looking for the approval of the board of trustees, but is the planning commission board saying, okay, we would like this survey done due to the conversation that took place at the trustees meeting on Monday?
I think based
Because
on that
I would make that
conversation.
motion.
Say that last sentence.
I would make that motion. We have master plan on here, and I would make the motion that we forward back to the Board of Trustees that the Planning Commission would like to have the survey done so we could compare apples to apples, following, as Don mentioned, that it should be a hard copy survey with the option of doing it electronically.
I just have to ask a question. Because I'm just trying to, clarify this. Since the board Monday night already made a motion and approved it, that there will be a survey done.
But they also they wanted it done and completed prior to the March,
Right.
and that can't happen.
So you're
So,
gonna
got a question?
override the,
Well,
No.
this
They're gonna make a
board
recommendation.
is the one that will actually approve this.
they're making a
They
recommendation.
make a recommendation that they vote on, which forwards it up to our board, which then it's in front of us again, and if there's monies attached, we also have to vote on that, because we spent the money.
So, do we have a motion that the planning commission is recommending that the survey,
The hard copy of the survey.
that the hard copy of the survey, as they requested, even though it can't be completed within 60, by the March 14th date, they need to make the appropriations and be comfortable with the fact that it would be probably not an April approval, but a May approval. That's a mouthful, but do we have a motion for that? Something to that effect?
But I just want to make sure they're sending the hard copy of the survey to the people.
Hard copy, which would be,
And they can either fill it out and send
This.
that back or go online and do it.
I think all the above, why not state all, it's
Yeah.
not hard to do all the
We give them
above.
the three
QR code,
choices.
Okay.
hard copies here, and an online survey for the millennial who's not gonna fill out a hard copy survey, who wants to click through, tab through the survey. Put it on the website.
because to clarify, you said that this survey was done electronically.
Yep.
And this electronic survey had more than 400 respondents, which is really, really good for a survey. Yeah. That's a very good turnout.
But the point that came out from Jennifer is that it was an online survey, right?
Yep, but it wasn't only online. There were hard copies at the hall. There were posters that went out. There were posters posted places, but it's formatted and stored in our online survey program.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's hosted online, but there were hard copies too.
Because we don't have to reinvent the wheel with this, we already have the wheel.
Okay, but that's Donna said he wanted
Hard-
mailed survey.
Yeah, as did we mentioned in
Yes,
the
that's
Monday
what
night
she
meeting.
said.
That was a big issue of contention.
Okay, but your survey, you're talking a hard copy survey, it's coming back, mailed back.
Which is
Okay.
a total of about 20, at least 24 days. Right.
Okay,
Not
you're
count
saying,
prep
you're saying
time.
this was done electronically. That's
Right,
not what
no,
we're doing.
I understand.
No,
This
that was
is
just a
part of
separate
it.
discussion.
I'm using the analogy of, it was electronic, we're looking at hard copies, so we will get a good response,
Right.
is the moral of the story, so that we catch the out township where there is no internet.
Wow. Where they don't really tap
Limited.
into it.
So, on the hard copy survey, normally, my plan, if you approve, would be to put the QR code in the top corner of it.
Sure.
So then if they don't want to take the paper, the QR code's right there. So then they can just do it electronically, and then that's that.
Because there's,
We do
Don
them all.
refers to the,
Elderly, you know.
right, that they're gonna fill out the hard copy. But there's just as much of the millennial crowd and Gen Zs that aren't gonna fill out a hard copy survey. They're wanting to scan.
Yeah,
and-
scan and go.
And
I'm
that's
the
not with
opposite, I'll
return-
never fill out an
return.
online one, and I only do hard copies. I like to get it in my hand and know it's there, you know.
So that's not with any return postage then, correct? Because.
That's up to you, the
That'll-
township.
That's
So-
to
But
me,
then
that's an
will it count
elected
that
board decision
If it comes through, doesn't it?
for funding.
If you put it on an envelope and they decide to do an email, if they don't use it, we don't get charged for it, do we? I don't know,
That-
I think it
that's-
goes through the post office. I don't know, though,
I-
because if we have
yeah,
to put it
you
on
do
there.
it.
put it
Yeah,
on
you put it on there,
so-
you're already paying
so,
for it.
yeah.
So there's a few
Because
different
that was
ways
the
that you
problem
could
with
do
the
that.
new
I think
election
the Dropbox would
process.
be
You
an
gotta
option.
pay no matter what.
So,
But we're
the,
first.
so just so you guys know, Spicer, we have a printing company that we work with a lot in Saginaw. So we can get a quote from them if you have if you have the number of addresses that you need. We can get a quote from them and give that to you, so you can look at the amount beforehand.
I think that's a.
Yeah, I know, I'm just
We're gonna make a
saying.
recommendation. Do we have a motion?
I would make the motion to do the hard copy survey well as to offer the QR code in the upper corner, so it could be done electronically if an individual wanted to. But this way, it gets mailed back in-house so that we can.
But then on these, are you changing the March 14th date?
That's just for public, that's
They can
That's
still
a
have the
public
public
hearing
one
that day.
even if.
Yep.
You
Right.
can still have the public hearing, you can wait until you can cancel it, wait till you have the survey results back,
Okay.
scheduled the next month.
I don't think actually it'd be a bad plan, because then you get the heartbeat of the residents
And then-
in person, and you'll get what the feedback of the survey.
And the
So I know we can
postcard
decide.
can actually say there will be a public hearing on X date. See who comes out.
I'd like to interject two things, if I may. We kind of got that way
Sure.
real quickly. There was a 20th item that was like an open-ended, like an open comment box, correct? And
Probably.
So if
Oh,
we're gonna
I'm sorry.
restrict
I
it
missed-
to
I missed
19,
number
we're getting
20.
rid of the open comment box, which I think is important for people to be
It
able to
says
say, hey,
19
this
back
wasn't
here, but
covered.
open comment in the front wasn't numbered.
It's
Yeah.
you want a copy of the last survey,
Yeah,
regardless of how many
essentially.
questions.
I just wanted to make sure we didn't
Yeah.
omit that
Okay.
by saying 19 questions.
Yes.
And then the other thing I want to say is, as far as that public hearing, I agree with Don that it's great to get it on both sides, but I also think that when you have survey results, especially when you have 2016 versus 2024 results, and you have those that you can show people, then it starts their thinking too, and I think you get much richer responses from them, because they're looking at what everybody said, and you know what, I don't know if I agree with that, or you know, that is a good idea. You're actually gonna spur more open conversation with results in front of the people at a public hearing, and I think that is much more transparent when you do that, because then you're not just having these people come that are uncomfortable and they haven't been to a meeting before and they're not sure when to talk, and you know, I don't think you get the same kind of response as you do when you start by educating, by giving information. You're likely to receive a lot more information. So I'm just throwing that out as a
Yeah,
comment.
and we don't have to make the March 14th
Yep.
date, or did
Yep,
anything about
agreed.
that
That's outside
tonight.
your hands,
We
but
could
just a
always,
comment.
we can always see how responses are coming in. If it's very minimal, then maybe we wait, we push it. If we have a nice, a good response by the time that meeting is over. So can you read that? Can you read just what Charlie's specific to the language
Okay.
of the
Charlie made a motion for a recommendation
recommendation?
for a survey to go out in hard copy, using using the same questions as the last survey, with the, you know, I listened to all this.
QR code.
QR code on it, so that they can either return it in person, send it in the mail, put it on the, or send it online. Pretty much. It's close.
It's you know, I think you need a
We
few
can
more words in
Well,
there. Not quite wordy enough.
So I made the motion.
That's all I've
Do we
heard
have a
this week. I
second?
don't have a second yet.
It's a long motion.
I'll second.
Can you do a roll call on that?
I'd love to. I'm being sassy tonight, I'm sorry.
Just say your brochure when you get home.
I will. Okay, Knuckle,
Yes.
Cynic,
Yes.
Ropus,
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Okay. Old business, short-term rentals. This December, this information that was, this is the first, apologize, the first time I'm seeing this recommendation for short-term rental properties.
So this was just, Rick called and asked if I had an example. So this is just an example. I'm not saying this is what works for call calling. It's just something for you to look at.
I find this to be a very slippery slope when you start defining short versus long. Many townships I've seen, having a place up north, have just, do you find that many of them limit the number with permits? You do.
Some people do, yes.
Is that in a more metropolitan area, do they seem to limit the number? Or is it across the, is there no rhyme or reason to?
I don't know if it's metropolitan because, you know, vacation rentals aren't always in metropolitan areas. But
Part of my territory is Traverse City, which is abundant of VBRO and Airbnbs.
And that was in Zealand, and Zealand's had a lot of interesting stuff about Airbnbs.
I think some people do. Some communities, not people, do have ordinances like this and do it by permits or licenses. I would imagine others don't, and maybe they don't have a big problem with it. If you want to get on top of this ahead of the game, if you are afraid that if you think there are going to be a lot of short-term rentals in the township now because they're allowed, then this would be something to consider. If you don't think there's gonna be an issue, maybe you don't need it.
When
But
you say now
without-
they're allowed, they were never not allowed.
I know, but now they're specific, now you
On
specifically.
tourist dwellings.
Yeah,
Yeah, but only to C1, and I think that's like less than 14 parcels, 16 parcels within the township, C1 only. I mean, I'm not making any recommendations, this is a big, we almost, if this is the direction we wanna go, we almost, and I know Gary has, had a lot of thoughts on this and has put a lot of research in it, so I'd almost rather table it till we, or we have a special working session to talk through specifically this topic.
you weren't here, obviously you weren't here last month, but part of the conversation was, this is a lot. Are we gonna manage this? Who's gonna take it on?
It is.
If we're gonna adopt this, are we actually gonna be able to work through it?
Enforce it.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that was talked about last
Well, it
month.
becomes actually where the zoning administrator would be the person who should be the person that would take care of the short-term rentals, just like you would take care of.
Don, any thoughts?
I think it needs to be either a license like from the township to have a short-term place, so that you can get advantage of who's doing what with these properties, because the neighboring properties need to know this. And how do you keep a policing on these properties, you know? That's, I know it was talked about last meeting about, they do have a sheriff deputy on staff in the township, but who's gonna ride herd on this? Basically, you know, we need
Who's gonna be
to,
responsible?
yeah.
Again, a big issue, I know based on, sounds like the conversation from December's meeting, it was kind of pushed to this meeting, and Gary's unfortunately not here or well today. So I make a motion to table this till we either have a workshop specifically to talk through this one item.
Do you want me to do anything in that time, or do you wanna just
I
sit
think
on
we
it
need
for
more
now?
than one.
You want more?
I do, from smaller
Okay.
townships to more,
Okay,
the larger municipalities, how they're handling it. And then is there any state, at one point, there were stalled bills last fall. I'd like to see their definitions of short and long term, how we handle that, just for input as well.
There's actually lawsuits that were brought up last month that were also talked about between townships. So it's careful.
So I make a motion to table this for tonight.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so the last item is the old business, is specific to a parking provision, discussing the parking provision for specific to the tourist dwelling. Charlie?
Well, Gary and I actually did look at this in the ordinance book. And that's why I made sure and pulled it and gave everybody a copy of it. And if you go to page